Hey, what's up, everybody? This is the Ghastly Samus from the Rounding Off Infinity Gaming channel on YouTube, the E2KG Network podcasting channel on YouTube, aka Game Logic on Twitch, here with my fab friends, also from the E2KG Network, Mr. Swissguard. How you doing, Swiss?
Doing well. Had a good Easter, and weather has taken a turn for the better.
And Tau Master 99. How you doing, Tau?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much.
All right, very cool. Welcome aboard to the Enough to Keep Going weekly games podcast, Grown Ups Who Game, episode number 187, the Gamer Experience Show, i.e., what we call the GX Show, part one for April 2021. Tonight, we're going to be running down all of the games that we've been playing, and we've been playing quite a bunch, a little kind of medium. We're in there. It's a good show to listen to because we've been playing a lot of stuff. If you are interested in playing video games and you like talking about video games, then we welcome you aboard to sit by the fireside and listen to our little gamer chat. Tonight, maybe DBQ will be joining us as well, the fourth horseman of the apocalypse. He had some problems with Windows, most likely, with his machine, so hopefully he will be back on board pretty soon. Starting off the top of our show, we're going to be talking about any new games that we've been playing. And if they are applicable to your picks plays, we'll be talking about that as well. Does that apply to anyone before we get started?
No.
Doesn't apply to me. Doesn't apply to that. Okay, so we'll dispense with reading you the assignment in the picks plays until later. But we'll start off talking about the new games we've been playing. Tao, you, my friend, have been playing one of the most popular new releases of late, Monster Hunter Rise on the Nintendo Switch. Can you tell us about it, fine sir?
Yes, sir. I could tell it. I could talk about it. To be honest with you, I would not have gotten this game, at least not right away, if it wasn't for my one friend who picked it up. So, I saw him actually playing it like a few days in a row after it had come out, and then I was asking him about it. He's like, "Yeah, you should get in, join us." And him and his one of his other friends. So like, all right. I was kind of like betting it around, and it's like, I don't know, but I've read it as kind of uh, new player friendly, like newbie friendly. So I was like, all right, I'll give it a try. And boy, am I glad I have him to walk me through it because it's still kind of confusing to me. Not as bad as like when I first tried a Monster Hunter back in the day, and that was back a long time ago. That was back on like on a PSP, so I had bought one. But I mean, for the most part, like yeah, if I would have just bought it and was playing by myself, I probably would have been okay. He's definitely kind of walked me through the nuances of the game, just the crafting and just the different kind of weapons that you can use. And I've only been using the bow right now, the bow and arrow. It was like a whole I don't even know how many game or how many excuse me how many weapons are in this game, but there's a lot. So you can kind of bounce around and choose different things. So that's kind of nice that there's choice like that. To be honest, the first night I got it, I just played single player for a little while, but I played for maybe like an hour and a half or so, and like that first half hour was just a character creator, which I was kind of surprised. It's fairly in depth. Nothing as much as say like the Elder Scrolls, like Oblivion or Skyrim. But you can get pretty detailed. And at first, I started kind of going through. You can like do the eyes, and you can kind of move the eyes and stuff around. I could do all those like little uh, uh, nuances like the cheeks and all that. And I kind of started doing that, and I was like, all right, this is like way too much. So I kind of just kind of ripped through it after like I noticed I was like at like 25 minutes or something. So I did that, and then I did a little bit of the story. I think, uh, I mean, there's a story that kind of goes along in here, but I think this is really just a multiplayer game because there's kind of two sections of the game. It's the single. You always kind of start off in this like little hub village area. I think eventually you get to go to different villages. I think but and then you can go to different people to get like different quests and stuff like that. It kind of sectioned off into like village quests, which is basically the single player ish quests that you can do. And then I forgot what the other quest is called, but it's basically like just multiplayer quest, or you really should do it multiplayer because these are like the larger monsters you have to go and hunt. So I usually only do that with them or with him, whoever's online. And when you have more than just like the one person, the difficulty does ramp up, and it ramps up a lot, as we found out when it was the three of us playing. So it took us like I think you get like 50 minutes like each time you go out into the world, and whichever mission you get, even if something super simple. So that's kind of nice that they always give you that same time limit. But it like almost probably took us like the whole time, a few times, to kill that monster, because it was just like you kind of beat on it and then it'll run away. So then you got to go find it again, which on the map you can see it fairly easily, but still, you got to chase it. So, but yeah, otherwise, I'm having a lot of fun with this right now, and I'll probably stick with the multiplayer for the most part. I might jump in there every once in a while, to do the just like the village stuff, and I think you kind of there's not really levels so much. There is like a character level, like a hunter level. I guess from what they've told me, it doesn't really mean anything. It's more so like crafting the different weapons and upgrading those, to kind of like you know get defeat the different monsters basically. So the levels really don't count, I guess, so much. But yep, I've had a lot of fun. This is actually one of the first games in a long time I actually had to watch some YouTube videos on, because I was like, all right, I got to understand what I'm doing here with these weapons, because I didn't realize like you have to craft certain ones before you can upgrade this other one, and it was kind of just weird. So I was like, all right, I gotta do something here, and actually do some research for once. I can't just fumble my way through it like I do with most games. So I did. I actually had to do that. I watched a few videos, so pretty good ones. They gave you some good advice. So YouTube kids, go out there and watch it if you're having trouble with the game. But yeah, like I said, I'll definitely be sticking with it, and like I said, I'll probably just play mostly with my friends when they're on. So, but I'm having a good time with it. Good multiplayer game.
Well, very cool. It warms the very cockles of my heart to look at the boards and have all 4 squares occupied. I just want to take a brief moment to welcome aboard DBQ. Woot woot to the game train. How you doing there, DB?
Well, I could say that my technical problems were all part of a bit to talk about one of the games that I've been playing, but that isn't actually true, but it's so apropos. So let's get back to the conversation.
Yeah, this is now with you here. The circle is complete, and tonight will definitely be a discussion of the weird and wacky in gaming. So, Prime. First of all, I don't know if you saw the look of disdain on my face when you said the word crafting, but that was one of the things that was a quick turnoff. But I guess one thing I want to ask is I always have to ask with any Monster Hunter game, right, which is firmly in the realm of the rabid fandom of Monster Hunter. Is this, and you've played, I think, a few iterations in this series over the last few years, is this a onboarding for normals, or is it an onboarding for those who are steeped in the lore and kind of unique game mechanics of the Monster Hunter series?
It's definitely. I would say if you knew if you had played the previous ones, you can just jump right in. But definitely if you're a newbie, they kind of just throw you into the wolves, because that was actually one of the things I forgot to mention is when I started playing just the single player. There's not really a tutorial kind of level that you do. They just kind of say, all right, you're gonna start off. This is the village. There's monsters. There's rampaging. Go out and do stuff, and they kind of give you like quick blurbs, like a little flash on the screen, say, hey, this is what you do. Um, but there's not kind of like a hand holding like in most games nowadays, which I guess is kind of refreshing, but kind of annoying too at the same time. You can go into the settings, and there's a whole like list of stuff you can read through, but I don't know, maybe I'm just more used to now, like, hey, we're gonna set you in this tutorial world and kind of hold your hand a little bit, to do stuff. So, but definitely this that wasn't in this game. So you just kind of you had to do a lot of reading if you want to kind of figure things out. Uh, so yeah, if you've done other Monster Hunter World or Monster Hunters, you definitely would pretty much know what to do from what I've heard. I only played the one other one, and that was like a long time ago on the PSP. So um, I was basically kind of like brand new to this game. So
You
definitely.
you mentioned that you intend to play like multiplayer with your friends more.
Mhm.
Are they big Monster Hunter fans, and are you concerned that there's going to be a chasm of like level progression between the two of you and like equipment? And is that I'm not familiar enough with Monster Hunter multiplayer to know if that's actually a problem down the line.
kinda is because when I first started, like they had already got like all kinds of like I wouldn't say like super powerful gear, but pretty good weapons and armor that you can. Those are the different things you can craft. Um, so when I started, like, all right, here you start the missions because you're the lower rank, and I was like, oh okay. So and even when we were fighting, they're like kind of well, at first they were kind of holding back, but then we realized like, hey, there's three of us. I think they ramped up the difficulty because these. He's like, oh man, these things aren't they're not going down like as easy as they were before. So they definitely ramp up the. Even though I started the mission, they still get pretty tough. Um, so yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a problem because they were helping me out too. Like it wasn't a big deal. Like even the other guy who I've played some games before, but it was mostly like shooters. He was cool and he was helping me and everything. So I don't think that's going to be a big of a problem. Now I played a little bit single player here and there, and I've been able to level stuff up. So hopefully I'll be able to catch up a little bit more to them. And as far as the crafting, it's not too bad. I mean, just as long as you have the material, like you can craft stuff, you don't have to like figure things out too bad. And it tells you like when you go into like the different menus, it tells you like what you need. So it's not too awful, the crafting side of it. It's not like old style Minecraft where you had to kind of figure out like the actual, patterns of what you needed to do. I think that was actually a lot harder back in the day.
So did I miss the wire bug discussion, or have you not gotten to the wire bugs yet?
No, I did. Yeah, I didn't
Okay.
even mention that. Yeah. So yeah, the wire bug is the kind of new traversal mechanic in there, where it's kind of like basically like a grappling hook. Basically, it doesn't go really too far, but it's still kind of cool. You can kind of zip around a little bit. And there's also a wall run. I don't know if that's ever been in a Monster Hunter before, but I think this game's a little bit more vertical maybe than most of the other ones. I think that's kind of why they
Yeah,
put
that's
that in
what
there.
I've read, that it's more vertical than any of them. Yeah,
Yeah.
in part because of the wire bugs.
Yeah. So like if there's a fairly large area that you play in the game area each time you go into, and there's different environments like snow and deserts and stuff like that, obviously. But they have like the big cliffs and stuff. You can just climb right up and just wall run up the whole thing. There is a stamina meter, so you do get tired eventually, but kind of a cheat. Like you can use the wire bug to shoot up like a third or halfway up the wall, and then kind of run up it. And then even if you like run out of the stamina for the running, like you kind of flip off and start to fall, but you can just do the wire bug again and kind of like not totally starts over, but you get a little bit of stamina left that you can pretty much like do a whole giant cliff like all in one shot, pretty much. So it's actually kind of nice. Man, the one thing, it's just me, I know, but there's no jump button in the game. And that really bothers me. It always bothers me when there's not a jump button. I know you got the wire bug and stuff, but it's just annoying that there's no jump button. And I and the characters or character, because I mean there's really only one. You just kind of it's more that you modify like your weapons and your armor and stuff. So there's only one character that you kind of modify. But the control, man, I don't know what what they like so much about tank controls, but it's not as bad as say like a Resident Evil or anything like that, but it's still kind of like you kind of slowly move in, and if I turn to the right and I'm kind of walking and I turn back the other way, you kind of like kind of just go like that instead of just like turning quickly. So it's kind of annoying, but I kind of got used to it. But so
Oh, very cool. DB, did you experience equal craziness and quirkiness in Kaze and the Wild Masks?
Actually, Kaze, or Kaze, as I've heard it now pronounced, is not that crazy at all. It's a 3D platformer. No, it's not a 3D platformer. It's a 2D platformer it draws its inspiration from Donkey Kong Country. I've talked about this a little bit before in terms of one of the games I was anticipating for this year. There was a demo out last summer. It's now out on everything, including Stadia, I believe, even. And it's really fun. It sands off a few kind of frustrating 90s platformer aspects. There's no lives. If you die, you respawn. There's checkpoints. But even like in the Donkey Kong Country vein, where you would jump in a barrel and go off to a bonus stage, if you fail the bonus stage, you can just restart from the beginning of the bonus stage, and so it does sand off a number of those things. But it's got really tight controls. It is plotting in terms of some of its jumps, but it's precise in the same way that it's not looking to be kind of a precision platformer, kind of a Twitch space. It's not Celeste or Super Meat Boy. It is very much more. It is, you're controlling a rabbit that kind of is a blend between, let's say Diddy Kong Donkey Kong and Dixie Kong. You've got your ears that can kind of flutter like Dixie Kong. You've got a roll, or you've got some movement. You've got, a variety of enemies who are all kind of themed around vegetables, but are very much takes on the Donkey Kong Country types of enemies in terms of the fast moving ones. Or here are the spiky balls, or the equivalent of the bees, and you have carrots instead of the I can't even, whatever the generic kind of lizard-like people are. And I'm sure somebody here is going to correct me about what they are. But no, it's a 90s platformer, and it is developed by a small Brazilian studio, and it's been a lot of fun.
Cool. Can you triangulate for me Crash Bandicoot, Rayman, Rabbids, and why can I not think of the name right now? Stink. What's the
Sonic?
No, what's the thing I just played last year? Ori. Ori.
Okay.
So kind of between those, because you mentioned different things that evoked aspects of each of those games to me, and I'm kind of wondering, like, which one of those in the spectrum do you think, like, they are, would you call it, closest to?
I would say that it is. It is. Well, I'm given those three options, I'm going to put it in between Crash and Rayman.
Okay. And squarely in the middle of that triangle is an acceptable answer, too.
Well, and I would say it's more of a, if you think back to 90s platformers, and I'll keep Crash in there, but let's do Crash and Mario and Sonic. And then you get kind of that second wave of mascot platformers where you do get a Rayman, and you get an Earthworm Jim, and you get, Bubsy and Donkey Kong. And it feels like when I played it, playing through the levels, you do some transformation stuff, which is equivalent to some of the characters that you ride on in Donkey Kong Country, but it is much more in the Yoshi's Island vein. So it's somewhere in there. So back to your triangularization, that it is somewhat in the Crash vein, that it is like Crash 4. It tries to be authentic to what inspired it, and it does that. And like Rayman, it is kind of a good classic 2D side-scrolling platformer.
So kind of along that that range of evolution, right, from the 90s to today, it's kind of in the middle. It's not all the way back to the... It's on that curve of the 90s where we're starting to progress into kind of what we think of maybe as a slightly more modern platform.
I would say it's toward the end of the SNES era. This would not have been... You wouldn't be surprised if it came out on a long discovered SNES cart that was, released by a European studio after the N64 came out, and we never heard about it. It feels in that kind of 96 range.
So is it, because I want to pitch you on the second one, which I think has a slight stink of controversy around it, so I definitely want to hear your opinions. And I want to give anybody else to ask any questions about Kaze and the Wild Mass as well before we skip to Balan Wonderworld. Is it remarkable, is kind of one of my questions. Or is it just kind of another, it's a platformer. It's a 2020 platformer.
It's chicken soup. It is comfort food, right?
But for the soul.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, so I would say remarkable for a 2D platformer gets me in the vein of, Celeste is remarkable because it builds on what was there before. this is enjoyable because it calls back to all those same themes. It doesn't necessarily evolve anything. It is just really enjoyable to play. And I think that's the difference. Like if you're looking for an evolution in 2D platforming, this is not it. This is a labor of love, a team that was inspired by 90s platformers and polished the graphics up a little bit, added a few touches here and there in terms of, modern sensibilities, but doesn't necessarily evolve that. And so, no, I don't know that it's remarkable. It's thoroughly enjoyable.
Very cool, very cool. Anyone else with any questions before we skip over to Balan Wonderworld?
Yeah, I had one quick question.
Yeah.
One quick question. I'm sorry if you had mentioned this, but how did this come about that you found this game?
How did I find it?
Yeah.
So yeah, I found it
Because I'd never heard of this game, so I just kind of wondered.
Well, and it doesn't. I don't know that it got a whole lot of press when it came out. Like at the end of March is when it came out. But I found it last summer during the Xbox like E3 kind of demo palooza that they did, where they had a whole bunch of in development games, and I stumbled across it there, played through the first world, was kind of following its development, and so I picked it up on Switch. Runs really well on Switch. It looks nice, but that's how I ended up kind of stumbling across it. I don't know. I would have probably found it now because of kind of looking through new Switch releases or other games, YouTube channels for smaller indie releases. But yeah, I'm glad that I stumbled across it, and it's right now it's $30. I think it is. I'm happy to support the developers at $30. I think it would probably sell better at a $20 price point, but it is
Oddly enough that you mentioned that on Steam it is $20. So I just went over the Nintendo page and was a little bit surprised to see it at 30.
And it's 30 on all consoles as well. So
that's too bad. I was about to say Nintendo tax. But DB, you also been playing Balan Wonderworld, which is even more curious as to how and why you chose to jump into that. And the specific controversy I definitely want you to address is this is not a very well reviewed game in current circles. So what has your experience been?
Okay, well, first, if my computer hadn't had issues, my whole segue about this was that I was revisiting platformers from the past, right? The good 90s platformers and the bad late 90s platformers where they were trying to figure out what 3D platforming looked like. So we got the good in the 2D, and Balan is definitely in that kind of Dreamcast, early PlayStation 2 era of game design around 3D platformers. But because my computer crashed and I was having all kinds of other issues, I'll just say this. Imagine if you had a keyboard and every button on the keyboard typed the same letter. And but you had multiple keyboards, and that's how you would end up typing. Balan Wonderworld, every button on your controller does the same thing, and it is simply an action button. You have the only three inputs you have are the right stick to control the camera, the left stick to move, and the action button. And so your default is a jump, but then part of the conceit around Balan Wonderworld is that you get different costumes, and this feels very, it feels like this is a follow-up to some type of, design doc after Nights into Dreams. That there are, this is Yuji Naka, and, there's a number of different costumes that you end up putting on. And each costume has, I shouldn't even say different abilities. Each costume has one ability. So if you have they don't all have, there's some that have multiple abilities, because the pig costume can do a butt stomp and can flutter its arms to kind of glide a little bit. Because of course pigs fly, right? And yeah, sure. But so you end up having, you can have up to 3 costumes in your rotation that you switch through. Oh, look at this. I'm pointing out the flaws in my ways. There's a 4th input option where you can use the bumpers to switch between your costumes. So you switch between your costumes in order to do certain things. Like you need to glide over an edge, or you need to break a block. And so you're the Tasmanian devil wolf type of costume. Or if you need to, jump over a certain area, you need the little flutter pig. But all that sounds like it could really work. Like, I watched videos of this and I still got it on Gamefly because I was curious. I think I'm so glad they've released a demo, because the demo will tell you if you even have the patience, or if this is like the beautiful Mystery Science Theater movie game aspect of what it turned out to be for my family. Is all of that could really work, except when it's thrown into a game that has game design, level design of really 2001, 2002. It is not, there is a hub, and it is very much a chow garden where you have little Tims that you feed gems to, and they open up other stuff, and you go into a world, and the world game design, I played this with my kids, and they both said there are stages in PlayStation Dreams better than this. It feels like somebody built it in PlayStation Dreams. Like, it is, the textures are very flat. There's a lot of traversal, but it's all linear. There's not like multiple paths to go through, because even if you jump over a spot that you're not supposed to get to, or you kind of stretch over it because you're using the stretchy plant, you still can only, maybe there's a chest hidden back around there. And a chest is interesting, but you need a key to open the chest. And every key to a chest, at least in the first couple stages, is within eyesight of the chest. So it's not like you find a key on one section of the stage and then go back to finding the chest. You find the chest, and just to the right of it is the key to that chest. So, yeah, right? Logical game design there. So all of this kind of starts putting it together of it's just not fully developed, or if it was developed, I mean, like there's a lot of passion into it, because the cutscenes are good. There is you defeat a boss and you get kind of a musical dance number, kind of Bollywood style. So there's some interesting things going on. Speaking of interesting, there's a Balan Wonderworld novelization that goes more into the whole aspect of this world.
This sounds like the 50 Shades of Grey of of gaming.
No, right?
It's like somebody wrote Super Mario fanfic and turned it into a game.
I think it's officially licensed, but unfortunately, it's just not a good game. I mean, there's some interesting concepts, but nothing ever really feels developed, or even in. Well, no, I mean, if this was a Dreamcast game, it would have been passable, because this was a Dreamcast game, and that feels like, unfortunately, it doesn't feel like game design for Sonic's creator has really advanced beyond where things were Nights into Dreams, early GameCube era. So
is it getting buzz just because it's a bad game?
Oh, yeah. Okay. I mean, I think it was getting buzz originally because it's a new platformer by the creator of Sonic the Hedgehog, which, has a pretty decent, not the best pedigree, but he's also done some really interesting stuff, like Billy Hatcher and the Incredible Egg on GameCube, which is not necessarily a good game, but it was a solid platformer for its time. Kiwi, which was a puzzle Ivy the Kiwi was a puzzle game on the Wii and DS. And then he did things like Let's Tap, where it came with a cardboard box. So I think it was getting press initially because it was Yuji Naka. And now it's getting press because it is just terrible. I mean, I haven't laughed so hard. My kids and I spent an hour playing, hour and 20 minutes playing it, and laughed a lot. There is a co-op mode, and we also then, once we died or backed out of a menu accidentally, because there is no back button, because all your buttons do the same thing. You have to choose the menu select option that says return to previous menu if you want to go back, rather than simply push a button. But then once we had backed out of it and tried to go back in to play co-op, couldn't. It wouldn't launch. And then so we just ended up playing single player. But because we had started as co-op, both of the controllers controlled the character. So
Wow.
Sure. Right. And again, even in co-op, only I'm not going to say full-fledged, but it's more developed. You have more interaction than you would in like Mario Galaxy or the new Bowser's Fury, that you have two characters that are moving around the screen, but the camera only follows player one. It doesn't split off. It doesn't even bubble you up. So you have to stay together. I mean, it is either an intentional choice because the game is talking about the spirit of humanity and the love in your heart because you collect heart pieces, or it is simply in the design and programming aspect of that was either never factored in, or it became too difficult to create something like what Traveler's Tales does with, Lego games, where the screen splits, or even if you were in a split screen, it would be different. So
in software, we call that a feature.
I get the sense that there's like Balan Wonderworld, it like was a concept and a theme and a story, and you even mentioning the novelization seems to back that up. It's almost like the actual game was an afterthought.
I think that's actually probably really accurate, Swiss. Like, what if you had, all these different costumes and they did different things, right? That I could see how this is a really good design doc until you get to, it works well in a pitch meeting, but not necessarily in any type of QA testing.
Yeah, just like the characters, designs, and everything. It just feels like this is kind of, like a weird anime manga type thing that they're like, well, okay, we have all this. We just need to like hurry up and make the game so we can ship it. But
well, and I'd be interested in knowing like what drama like went down behind the scenes in terms of how the sausage was really made. Like it's the creator of Sonic the Hedgehog, and he's done some games in between, but like we don't really know that he coded those games, or was he just more of like a creative director?
He was always a creative director. I mean, I shouldn't say always. In Sonic, he did some, but he was still, his primary role has been creative director. Yeah.
Yeah, and so on this, like, do we know, like, does he even have his own studio anymore? Did he outsource this? Did he, like you said, make the design doc, and then, I mean, there are lots of places online where you can
Let me tell you where this studio's name, Balan Studio. So it was pulled together specifically for this game. So, I mean, which is also maybe part of it, right? Like It was cobbled together versus kind of a studio team that was used to working with maybe an engine. Maybe they didn't have an engine and had to build something completely, and that wasn't in their real.
It's Unreal Engine.
Oh yeah, it is, isn't it? Yep. I can't even give them that. I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt.
But in a pandemic, like so just like in the rise before the pandemic, there have been lots of online sites and services that have been created where you can go with a business idea or an application idea and kind of go to an online like community and farm your idea out for hire and like self-interviewed. Like this sounds like it was that kind of cobbled together chop shop of, I can't remember what there's a premiere service that kind of does this, but like where he went online, shopped an idea, got a bunch of random eclectic assembled developers, and tried to pull this thing together in a pandemic because you can't work like on site anyway. And the result of it is, what we have. And then on top of that, would have had, potentially had a language barrier to get through as well. So who knows?
I would be more interested to read the postmortem around this and what that actually was than it would be the novelization. But I mean, really, it does seem like something must have happened for it to be as unfunctional of a modern game as it is.
And the other thing, what might come out of this is it could be that team like set patterns and like learn lessons that become like a template for like future development, like in a world where nobody like develops games in an office anymore. Who knows?
You're so positive. That's what everybody says about you.
No, that's really not what everyone says about me. As will be the case in point as we move on to our next game. DBQ, you set it up very well because you talked about Gamefly, which is pertinent to my rundown of this, as well as all of the bugs that you found. So while there is a story to be told about Pacer, the new game from R8 Games, who are a bunch of expatriates from the studio that made Wipeout, I think, which was Psygnosis. I think that's her name. So this is a new anti-grav racer. We've kind of already had, I don't really know that it's a spiritual successor to Wipeout, but we had Redout, came out a few years ago as well. We have RMX Racing that debuted on the Nintendo Switch, one of my favorite games. And so here comes along another anti-grav racer. Throw, as far as past history, throw F-Zero into that as well. And this game, the principal story of this game for me is, again, about a game-breaking bug that I came across that has caused me to just delete the game. And so there are some good bones underneath here. There is a whole progression model where you can sign up with individual teams. I think there are like 8 different teams. And then you have a series, like a host of performance upgrade kits and weapon upgrade kits, and each of those kits has mods that you can apply. So you can come up with a fairly unique customized build by equipping, a performance upgrade with a mod. You get 2 weapons pods left and right side, and then you get 2 mods per weapons pod. So that's 8 different variables that you can juggle to make your own craft, and you can develop a craft that suits your racing style. And then each of those upgrades costs in-game currency, which you earn through races. The problem that I encountered is that in the tutorial, the upgrade mechanic works fine, but in the single-player campaign at least, whenever I try and equip a weapons mod, so again, on the weapon screen, you have basically 6 slots. You have 2 weapons slots, and you have 2 mod slots per weapon. So I can equip a weapon, but often, almost all the time, when I go in and try and equip a mod to that weapon, I'm buying that mod. I make the purchase. I've equipped the weapons mod. I try to back out of the screen. After I have purchased the weapons mod, the game no longer takes gamepad input. And so it's on the screen. The game's running. You can hear the music and you can see some of the kind of ambient animations, but it takes no input. So you can't back out of the screen. You can't do anything. The only way to recover from that is for me to dump to the home screen, quit the game, and then relaunch the game. And this is on the Xbox Series S for me. So that's, half the progression model of the game that you're gated off from. And the game is dependent upon you going through increasingly more difficult races and challenges for which you need an expanding array of mods to equip to advance, right, to surmount those challenges. And so, at some point, number one, you're just running the same races with the same equipment, which defeats the whole purpose of the game. And then at some point, you're going to cap out because you can't surmount challenges because you can't arm mods. So, on top of that, we also have the problem that, I processed the game for a refund. I reached out to the developers on Twitter, got no response. Processed the game for a refund with Microsoft. Microsoft gave me no refund because, in their words, they have no way to grant refunds for digital purposes which have been used or consumed. And I'm like, I bought the game. I asked for the refund on, I think, Monday. I bought it on Saturday. I was like, I've had the game for 2.5 days. I've played a grand total of 6 hours. There's live stream footage of me playing the game at every instance that I was playing the game, where you can go and you can see where I've encountered the bug. A bunch of that time was spent with me troubleshooting, and I think this is a problem that I need to personally surmount, because as a software engineer, when I encounter a bug in a game, I feel like it's my responsibility to do the due diligence to actually verify that it's an actual bug, right? And there's not a workaround. And this is the second time, you guys well remember the Steam story of a few years ago, where I expend I expend more than like the 2 hours trying to troubleshoot. And so I guess there's some lessons learned here that I guess I just need to, the moment I encounter a bug, just submit the game for a refund. The only digital store in the last several years where I have never had a problem with getting a game refund is the Epic Store. Every instance where I've said, hey, I need to, there's a game-breaking problem with this game won't install, whatever, Epic has come back and refunded my money with no questions asked. This thing went to Microsoft, got kicked to like a specific reviewer to review the individual case, and then came back as trash as far as I'm concerned. And so DB, I've got to soul search and figure out what I do about this. I've held off from doing my scorched earth policy because I felt, of course, that's what I wanted to do. But you mentioned GameFly, and I realized as I did this, I may go the Towmaster route and just never buy another game on Xbox until I play it on Game Pass and play like 20 to 30 hours of it simply to know that I'm not going to get a bug. Like, I know we've talked about this before, and I've probably been fairly lenient, again, as a software guy, and kind of understanding what's going on behind the scenes, but this is like the pinnacle of us as consumers being the QA team, right? I'm responsible for testing software in my real-life job. I don't expect to pay money to have a developer force me to do their due diligence for them for testing that they should have completed, and Microsoft should have verified was done before it posted the game in its store. So, yeah, go ahead, Smith.
I was trying to see if I could find some other anyone else like encountering the same thing, but I found this story from like back in October. Oh, okay.
So did your son. That's great. I'm glad he's there to help.
The story in October, they actually had it ready on PS4 and PC and launched on those two platforms, but delayed the Xbox version. They put RE Games put a statement out. As Pacer is ready to launch on PS4 and PC, we have discovered one bug in our Xbox One version of the game, which means it cannot launch with the other versions. We are already working on the fix and are confident we will be able to get this version live in the next couple of weeks. And that was back in October. So, I mean, obviously, whatever they did, but it does sound like the Xbox version is a bit star-crossed.
Yeah, and it didn't take them a couple weeks to fix that because the game just launched. Like, I think in March maybe is the earliest. So, I mean, it was delayed like 3 to 6 months or 4 to 6 months before it was able to be launched on the Xbox. So, and this is supposed to be the Xbox One version, right? So it's not even a Series X or Series S version.
So, well, I went on their main page, it's like PS4, Xbox One, and Steam. So they don't even advertise it as next gen.
Right, exactly.
I'm really surprised that there wasn't any communication back from somebody in the studio if you try to hit them up on Twitter. Like, if this was a known issue, well, again, assuming that this was the bug that they were trying to get at, but if they knew that it might be a little dicey, you'd think they'd be kind of watching social media for any type of feedback. Because you're right. I mean, I feel for the developers because Wipeout was a great series. And if this is group of alum from there. I want to give them, I feel for them if this is the way that this game launched.
Yeah, it's a problem. So it is causing a great deal of soul searching. And then, and not just as a gamer and a person who has been on the digital bandwagon, but also as a racing gamer, as a person who plays games that not a ton of people play. Anti-grav racing games are probably even more fairly niche. And I'd like to support. Fast RMX is like one of my favorite games on the Nintendo Switch. For a person who plays Nintendo Switch and doesn't play the standard kind of games that other Nintendo Switch players play. And, I don't know. The whole thing just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. But also, like I said, kind of makes me think, I don't know. When that problem I had happened with Steam, I didn't buy a game from Steam for 2 years. Like, all of my PC games I bought from GOG, I don't know, I think the Epic Store came online at some point before then. But for a while, and so I followed this pattern of diversification of just saying, hey, don't ever let yourself get vendor locked in right to any one vendor. And this is Xbox, right? So so Microsoft had a role in this, and this developer has a role in it. I've also been trying to figure out. I need to go I tried to figure out how to put a review on the Microsoft Store for this. So I'm going to try and do that as well. So it's a bit sad. There's some good bones there for the game. I was really kind of enjoying it. For the gameplay that it provided, I was excited to get a new anti-grav racing game. But then, this just broke. So let's dig ourselves out of the sad times. The Pix Plays reports. It's Season 2 in Fortnite and Season 2 in COD Black Ops. Some of us came into this year claiming that these persistent progress, persistent world games would hold more sway over us. But 3 months into the year 2021, is that still true? Take a walk down the current offering of your subscription game and let us know if you feel like you've come back home, or come back home the Thanksgiving after an election year and watch everyone mumble around each other in awkward near silence. For those families that are politically divergent. For you guys out there who are, your whole family is one happy bandwagon of one political party, then you probably have a good Thanksgiving after election. If you're out on this New Year's claim, then admit that you've clapped out and use the time in a similar fashion to how you plan to game the rest of this year. Swiss, I don't want you to take this as an out. You got a lot of stuff going on. I completely understand that. Was there anything besides those logistics, though, that fed into your staring at Destiny 2, metaphorically, right, and saying, man, I really want to play that, but as I often do, kind of looking at the game and then just going, and going off and doing something else?
No, it wasn't the Pix Plays. It was legitimately the game. And, I haven't actually, my wife and I finished the Beyond Light campaign either in December or early January, sometime back then. And I haven't touched the game since. And it's just like every time I think about jumping in and seeing if she wants to play or something, and it's just like there's no incentive, because it feels like everything in the game is built around, just the grind and collecting, like collecting. Oh, excuse me, 1 second. We'll come back to that.
Okay. Well, I'll just put a dollop of sentiment on in Swiss's bucket until he comes back. I've had a little bit of the same problem or issue with Destiny 2. It's just like I wonder if with some of these subscription games, you hit a point. And I'm sure everyone does, like where you feel like you've tilled that soil enough. Like there's just no more getting fresh water out of that bucket in the well, and it's run its course, and it's stuck with you for longer than the normal single player game of 30 to 80 hours of gameplay, but it also hasn't had the legs of a Witcher, where you're going back and playing it for the 8th time and taking a different player progression path through it. So I don't know. Anyone else had? I guess DBQ, you would be the other Destiny 2.
Yeah. No, I'm still playing on a. I mean, I play once, maybe twice a week. I'll run some weekly stuff with some friends and family. I'm not in the grind for seasonal content. I didn't do the seasonal content. I didn't buy the season pass. From what I've seen online and watched cutscenes of, the story is actually pretty good. In the last 2 seasons, the story's been good. The actual content of this season has been better. There's been some stuff that you could do without having the full season pass. But at the same time, the reason for the season pass is kind of the chase of the grind. And if that's not what's doing it for you, which is definitely what seems to be the case in Swiss's case, then it's not worth investing in that. There's not, it is enjoyable, and I'm glad that I continue to play, but it's like playing a pickup game of basketball with some friends once a week. And that's the equivalent of it. It's not that it's giving me any type of progression in a meaningful sense.
Swiss, did you want to add on to round out your Destiny 2 commentary?
Yeah, sorry about that. He's back in bed. Yeah, it's just the grind doesn't appeal to me. Like as DB just said, like there's no satisfaction in the progression. I don't care about collecting whatever new loot they have for the particular season or whatever. And it feels like that's always being pushed. Like we're in the new season. There's all this stuff to get, and it's none of it appeals to me. So it's a matter of just like DB said, a pickup game of basketball. For me that might be Gambit or just running around. But on the other hand, it's like you combine that with being busy, and it's just I'll play something else. And it's kind of weird how fast I fell off that cliff of like, I mean, if it's a service game and then that whatever doesn't hook you all of a sudden, it's just like, wow, there's not much of an appeal anymore.
No, and I completely empathize with that, right? It's sort of like weird climbing back up on the horse. And so those persistent progression games are kind of great while you're riding. But yeah, once you go into that bathtub of climbing off, like it becomes an issue. And that was kind of my experience with Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. I played hard Black Ops World War Season 1. I mean, if you go back, right, it was Black Ops Cold War for a month and a half before Season Pass even started. And then the Season Pass may have been a little longer than that. I guess the Season Pass maybe started at the beginning of December. I'm not sure, or sometime right after Thanksgiving. But, like, I don't know that I played anything else, much, after its release. And I played so much and finished the Battle Pass and was, like, way high in prestige. And then once I completed the Battle Pass, kind of like you mentioned, Swiss, on Destiny 2, it was a nosedive. It was like, yep, I'm done. I mean, plus, the game's hard on my wrists, right? Like, it is intense and anxiety driving, right? It's like, completely focused on, like, how your stats are doing, and it's, like, on the edge of your seat gaming all the time, and then at certain points I'm like, look, man, like, I just need to grab a beer, right? Or, like, do something. And then I laid off of it for about probably a month, and then I was like, oh, yeah, I'll go ahead and get on Season 2. And in some ways, it was the one thing in the bathtub, right? It was like, you mentioned with Destiny 2, it was like, is that the horse I'm going to climb back? I don't know. Because, at least with COD, it's kind of a straight stick set of variables. It's weapons blueprints, which are really kind of the only things that I really care about. There are operator skins, right? There's a very set number of things to go after. Whereas in Destiny 2, it's like, let me find the grimoire, and like go online and Google the 59 different paths to follow to progression. Whereas Call of Duty, there's the store, there's the battle pass, there's a linear set of like 100 things for you to get. And so I climbed back up on the horse pretty quickly. I would say the experience this time around has been about how now having bled the entirety of Season 1, I'm comfortable going back to it, but I also don't feel obligated, like, to stay immersed in it, like I'm gonna be a League player or something, right? Like, I just don't have to take that obsessive path towards it. And it was a good time, and the time of the year might have something to do with it. Spring is kind of that time where you want to try a lot of different things. Fall is kind of, we had kind of wrapped up, or we're heading towards wrapping up our gaming superlative awards, and things were kind of settling down, and I was like, I don't know that I need to play like 5 of the top AAA titles like this year. I think I can just be focused on Cold War. So going back to it for season 2 was a welcome experience. I played, for a week and a half straight. Totally focused on that game. I'm fine, not having that be on my playlist all the time and, swinging over to play some other things. So, Tao, you also have been playing Cold War. Any kind of a similar experience, or are you a little more roped into your persistent progression New Year's resolution?
Well, yeah, as you can see on my list here, I've got like 4 different games, all kind of the same vein. I got Fortnite, I got Cold War, I got Rocket League, which kind of were my staples before, and I've added a fourth is Apex Legends that I've gotten into recently. Yeah, and I think it's just because of me, just the way I play nowadays, just because I don't have a lot of time to sit down and kind of just go through like a single player and stuff. These are kind of the games that I just kind of gravitate toward now because it's kind of those quick hits, and especially Call of Duty. Call of Duty 5, 6, 7 minute games, like pretty much. Compared to like Apex and Fortnite and Rocket. Well, not Rocket League. Rocket League's kind of short too, but any of the other like battle royale games where it takes you like 15 to 30 minutes to play one game. Uh, unless I go out like right away, which happens, but it happens. But Cold War and like Rocket League are those quick fixes that I can just jump in 5 to 8 minutes and get a few games in within like a half hour or so. So it just kind of plays to my game style nowadays. And uh, at one point, I actually had season passes for all these games, and I was like, you know what, I think I have a problem here, and I'm just gonna kind of like step back for a little bit and just kind of do maybe like a couple at a time now. And because like Fortnite, I've done now for a while, and I don't even have to pay for the battle pass anymore, technically, because I could just you get the in-game currency that you get through the battle pass. So I just save that up and buy the next battle pass. So it's kind of easy like that. And same thing with Rocket League because I play Rocket League so much. I mean, I play it on the Switch, I play on the Xbox, play on anything. So, and, like I said, it's 5, 10 minutes here and there. I can level up probably within like 2 or 3 games, depending on uh, if I've done like the challenges for that week or whatever. So, I mean, yeah, it's just those quick fixes that I like to go through and just it caters to my game style nowadays.
Cool, very cool. So one thing I did want to ask you though, so across that spectrum of games though, Cold War has a progression model to it. I guess, and I know that you pay attention to that because you and I played together. Are you focused on the progression model for Apex Legends, Fortnite, and Rocket League, or is it more like that? I mean, just kind of like DB said, right? That's your game of like flag football, right? You're not watching your stats right on those, but it's just kind of the ones that you go out and play with the guys and then but like I mean, is there a delta between how you're regarding that time spent right in Cold War versus Apex Legends, Fortnite, and Rocket League?
Yeah, it's not so much so in those other games, especially Apex. Like when I bought that battle pass, like the stuff you get in the actual battle pass I mean, obviously you get like the skins and stuff, but you don't get as it doesn't seem as much in Apex Legends as far as skins and like weapon skins and stuff like that. It's more of what they call badges, and I can't remember what the other thing is, but it basically kind of keeps track of your stats for you, which is I guess kind of nice, and you can actually customize that part on the loading screens, and you can put, hey, I got this many kills this season, or this many kills overall, or I've got this many wins this season, and stuff like that, which is, I mean, that's fine, I guess. I mean, probably that would be more for Call of Duty if they did something like that, just because you got the KD and you got all these other kind of stats that they kind of keep track of, and it just didn't. I was just like, okay, whatever. But so definitely with Apex that happens, and even another degree Rocket League too, because once again it's just kind of skin, kind of like when I realized in this last battle pass I got up to, I don't know how many levels they're in this Rocket League pass, or the Rocket Pass as they call it. Because I got up to like 184 or something like that. And I was like, wow, how long does this thing keep going? And it just kept going. Like I could keep scrolling for like a page and a half. And then when you get to that page and a half, it just goes for another page and a half. So I was like, I don't know how many how many levels there are. And I was just getting like the same skin in just different colors, basically, or the same wheels in just different colors. So I was like, I mean, this is kind of pointless. I mean, I still do it just because, like I said, I can just use the in-game currency and buy it. So at least I can I like to get customizable stuff. I always like to customize my stuff, so that's kind of nice. But I just thought it was kind of cheap that they kind of give you the same, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 things and just kind of, different colors. So I thought that was kind of a little bit lame. But Fortnite, I'd say Fortnite and Call of Duty are the games that I really concentrate on, just because they give you such a variety of stuff in those games in the Battle Pass. So that's kind of nice.
Well, one game that I'm sure doesn't run out at a page and a half is the Lord of the Rings adventure card game. Swiss, does this have a multiplayer online component? And/or has your focus though been on the single player? And I know I want to say that part of this was a certain itch was getting scratched last episode, actually, when I talked a little bit about now I can't even remember the name. Whatever, Hand of Fate 2, because it had the card element to it, and you were asking some questions about that. Get into it, man. Tell us about it.
Yeah, there's a multiplayer because according to the menu system, but I did not explore it. So I focused on single player. Yeah, and you had talked about the card game, and this had been one of those that has been in my Steam list for a while, and I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan, so I was like, I should probably check that out at some point. And every now and then, there's a couple of guys I play like actual physical like tabletop games with, and we had recently played Magic the Gathering, so like for whatever reason, I'm on this card kick right now. So, I took this one out, and I enjoy it. I want to finish like the first campaign, and I want to try some of the other modes. But it feels strategic. The cards are interesting. I have different ways, like like pure just attacks, or just some ways I can constrain Sauron because he uses the cards and stuff. Um, and all that's been good. The art is interesting because it looks like they have different artists that would conceive of like Gimli, and you'd have you can unlock multiple like images for Gimli and stuff. But it's kind of nice to see like another artist take. I mean, a lot of artists have taken on Tolkien, but it's always nice to see those. So the art's good. Um, I will say that it's definitely like it's the adventure card game. So it is built around telling a story. Your enemy is Sauron. He's combating you via cards. So like Sauron will play like giant spider cards or whatever, and you'll do that. But it's all you'll have a little bit of a scenario. You'll do a few rounds of the card battling, and maybe have a difficult like mini boss battle, move on to the next scenario. The scenarios are very RPG-esque, I would say, like just like you would find in a typical like just straight up RPG, but it's using like Tolkien characters and creatures. It is not very Tolkien writing. So I wouldn't say that it's bad. It's just discordant when you're thinking about like these beloved characters and the way that they're talking and interacting. It's like this just feels like it came out of like Diablo something or other.
It's a 50 Shades of Grey of Tolkien. So you got a lot of that going on tonight. More fanfic.
Basically, I had that in my notes originally. I originally put very fan fictiony, and then after that, I kind of modified that to be like, well, it's more just very RPG scenario. But
So the stories that they're telling are not, they're not spun out of tales within the book or the appendices, or does it set before the Fellowship, or how does that?
Well, the campaign I'm playing feels in between, or maybe I'm not sure if it'd be post Fellowship or early, but it's like the tutorial starts off. There's a little mini campaign, and then that leads into the first campaign of the game, and it's like Bilbo is just going to visit his friends, and he's going through Mirkwood, and he gets captured by spiders, basically. But it's weird because you have characters from the Fellowship. So you got Arwen and Gimli and Aragorn and everybody with that, and mixed with the old school characters like Glowing seems like he's elderly at this point, so it may be post Fellowship. I'm not really sure even when they have it, but it's definitely like a made up scenario. Gollum is still alive, so that puts it pre-Fellowship, I guess you could say, somewhere in between. But then all the characters are there, so
Is
it's
this
clear
based
as mud.
off of a physical game? Is there a board game? I mean, I know there's a Lord of the Rings card game, but I don't know that this is it because I thought there was a different version.
It
Because this
is.
plays out more like almost like a Hearthstone in the mechanics of it, right?
It's possible that there's a physical game. It's Asmodee Digital, I think, did some of this, so they always seem to be like converting stuff like that. But I wouldn't. I'm not familiar enough with it to say. I mean, you're definitely like the characters have attack power, and you have your characters on the field, and then they can in turn attack others. It just I wouldn't. I haven't played Hearthstone, so I'm not sure how closely they're resembled. But um, yeah, it in a way it's kind of like Magic because you have resources that build up as you take turns, and you need those resources to put your cards out on the like play your cards. And once they're out there, when you use a card for that like round, it's in Magic it'd be tapped, but in this case, they call it exhausted or whatever. So it has that kind of vibe to me. But yeah, and then there were some like it's an Asmodee game, so like they have artists that do their stuff, but the UI is very uh functional and clunky in some ways. And there were times when it was like it wanted me to do something, and it's like the button is just kind of like hovering in space and just gets washed out with the artwork and I was like literally like I don't even know what I'm supposed to click to make things move on. So there's a little bit of rough edges there. But like I said, I'm enjoying it well enough to want to keep playing and finishing the campaign. But and where it is at like the price point, and I got it in like a humble bundle, like it's perfectly like that's like the niche it needs to be in, I think.
Yeah, I picked it up as a humble bundle as well, and you're right. It is an Asmodee game, Fantasy Flight. There is a physical Lord of the Rings adventure card game, and it's been around for almost a decade. Lots of
Oh, wow.
expansions. So it seems like it makes sense that then the side stories, the adventures that you're telling, feel like they would have come out of those types of things. Like it's pulling off expansion decks or things like that potentially. But I was glad to see you playing it because I also picked it up. I've been looking at it for quite a while, and even installed it at one point when it was in Game Pass, but just never got around to it. So, in part because I am interested I enjoy Hearthstone, I enjoy digital deck building, and I also enjoy that world. So now you've given me even more of an incentive to go back and kind of putz around with it. I was hopeful that it would come to iPad at some point, but it hasn't come to mobile devices.
No, DBQ, it hasn't, but a crap ton of stuff has for those people who are still subscribers to Apple Arcade. Does that include you, DBQ?
It includes me right now because I had when they dropped this news last week, people that had used up their free month, it seems like it's all been reset. So this is really like a potential relaunch, or this is a big push again for Apple Arcade, because I've subscribed multiple different times and have used my free one and have paid, but I got another free month because it's all the new stuff that dropped. You get the you get Oregon Trail, you get Fantasia this is by the Final Fantasy developer, Fantasia. It's a mixture of two different words by Mistwalker Corporation. So, and it's a Sakaguchi game. It's a diorama. I haven't had a chance to play too much of it yet. Other thing is, there's also another Platinum game that's in here, kind of an action game from Platinum Games, that is part of this. You get NBA 2K Arcade Edition, which has most of everything except for all the microtransactions and the, you know, my court or my city and all that type of stuff. But it's a full-fledged, it's weird to play an NBA game without any microtransactions. So, and speaking of microtransactions, there's a Star Wars game in here by Tilting Point Games. So Tilting Point Games has done the Star Wars timeline on mobile. They've done the SpongeBob Krusty Cook-Off. They've done all these kind of mobile, you know. Did you know that there's a Narcos or a Zombieland, you know, collectible gotcha mechanics, resource building? But so there's one of these in this package of Apple Arcade games, and it feels like, I mean, one, I tried it because it's a Star Wars game and I'm kind of curious, but also I'm kind of curious on how you design a game. It looks like it was designed to launch as a regular free-to-play mobile game that was super hungry for all year, because it's a gotcha mechanic, and there's 5 different resources at least that you're managing.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't it part of the specific structure that microtransaction games are not allowed in Apple Arcade?
You are absolutely correct. And there are no microtransactions. This is just a game that has all the same mechanics of a microtransaction game, except there's no microtransactions, which is, I mean, it works. In some ways, it's kind of refreshing to keep playing and not have a stamina meter, or to go back and kind of grind on some, go back over some missions, because there's even branching paths. It's strangely refreshing to do that because I'm not getting a best value pop-up for the next 2 hours that I could pay $4 for, right? I mean,
or the video ad every 6.5 minutes.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, so it's well done. I mean, if you've ever enjoyed any of those types of, party building, I mean, there's Star Wars versions of this, there's Marvel versions of this, there's, name a franchise and they've created a version of these types of, gotcha games that you're going up against and grinding and leveling up and feeding cards to.
But how many games was it 22 games that came in this drop?
Yeah, 22 games. We also got Oregon Trail. I said that already though. Clap Hands Golf, which is by the Everybody's Golf studio. So they're the Clap Hands studio, and it looks very much like that. It plays kind of like that, except it has touch screens, and it's a little touchy. I mean, it's not super precise. It's hard to get the putting. Driving is fine because you just swipe, but if you're trying to get something a little more precise, it is a little tricky. But I've probably played 15 to 18 holes, because you play them in groups of three. So
the main thing is these aren't chump change games. These are
no. So there's some of these big games, but then there's what they did, their classics as well, right? They brought back in Threes and Monument Valley and a variety of just like chess and solitaire and Fruit Ninja. Things like from early. There's a new Cut the Rope game. Things like from early App Store, which is kind of fun in a way of kind of going back to that, which would have been at this point close to 10 years that we were talking about the App Store. So yeah, no, not some big games, but then some also kind of bite-sized things as well. I don't know that I don't know that there's enough that it. Well, actually, yes. I think for $50 for a year, there's probably enough here. Like, I would rather pay $50 for a year and spend 5 minutes with a variety of these games than I would pay $50 for Balan Wonderworld on sale and spend 5 minutes with any of it. But again, $5 a month on Apple Arcade, I think it felt really dry after that first big push. That there really was just a trickle of games, but this kind of reloading of content has really kind of doubled the value of the service.
Do you think they are experimenting with what would be the best thing for them that is akin to a Game Pass? Something that is striking a variant, probably like maybe Sony will try, but the point is that something that brackets the space in between like a Game Pass versus PlayStation Now, but something where there's a feeling of increased value that results in onboarding additional subscribers. That's one possibility. The other possibility I want to ask you about: do you think this is a goodwill play before they go in front of a court and a judge in the Epic trial? Because it could create a hedge where there's an argument, right? Basically Epic's argument is that Apple is draconian and greedy, and yet here they are, right, doing something egalitarian and generous to its consumer base. So part of it could be image and a hedge to say, no, we're not greedy. Like we give back to our consumer community who's paid in over these years.
We give back to our consumer community that subscribes to us, right? I don't know. That feels like if you take the sheer number of games on Apple Arcade versus the App Store, giving back those few token games is not something that should sway a judge's or a grand jury's decision here. I don't know. I think really what this feels like. I appreciate the business model they're going with in terms of these are not streaming, right? These are download them. The Mistwalker game is 4 gigs, right? I mean, and the NBA 2K game is 3 gigs. So is the Platinum game. I mean, these are sizable downloads that they're not necessarily going to be. I think the piece here is that it feels like it is providing more content for people to stay in that infrastructure, because what was it this past winter when they kind of bundled, you could do the whole Apple, I don't know what it's called, Apple Life. It's not called Apple Life, but it bundles Apple News and the fitness pieces and
and Apple Music. Put all their services together in a very together. Amazon like all you can eat package.
Yep. And it gives it, I think it, that's the price point where if you're a family doing that, this is even more of a value. It gives you a reason where, as some of the other stuff may have gotten stale, that this is a place where it reminds people of the value that they might be getting.
Yeah, and I think Apple TV was in that bundle as well. So yeah, for somebody who's entirely cloaked and wrapped in the Apple ecosystem, as there are many American families who are, it's not a bad approach. So with my last game to cover, am I the last member of the cast who does this now make us all having played Jedi Fallen Order? No, Swiss has not played Jedi Fallen Order.
You never played Jedi Fallen Order?
I thought you had tried it out. I guess I was wrong.
I think I had it on, like, at some point it was like, hey, this is a game that I need to pick up on sale, and I never did. But seeing the agenda, I did put it in my wish list on Steam, so I can pick it up on sale at some point.
Gotcha. So this game is now available on Xbox Game Pass on PC, which has now rolled out and is available. Includes Wonder of Wonders, the EA desktop, EA's client replacement for Origin. The more I get out, they just keep pulling me back in. Because I was thinking naively that I would never have to have another piece of EA proprietary specific software on my desktop in order to play its games, but you do. Funnily enough, you bring up the Xbox client, and then if you want to download an EA game, you have to also bring up the EA client, which looks strangely similar to the Xbox client, and actually they'll come up on both screens, basically giving you the same exact information, which is the load percentage of the game as you're installing it. So there's your haha funny for the week.
But you have to go through Xbox first? Can you just go into the EA Play?
You could.
I thought that's what. Yeah, because you have to authenticate off of your Xbox subscription. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if it would launch your Xbox client in order to grab your username and password from that. or if it's already wired in on the back end. One of the other things that you bring it up that I found equally frustrating is it's still Origin in some kind of sneaky, sinister way. Whether or not they ported the database over, or it's really Origin, like in its blood and guts in the back end, and they just put a new UI over the top of it. Because everybody on my Origins friends list pops up into this new EA desktop client.
Real
Yeah,
quick tangent, but like there's an update to Civ 6 like in the last like 3 or 4 days. And now it's like you launch Civ 6 from Steam and there's like a Civilization storefront page and then you have to click through that to get into Civ 6 now. But anyway,
like there was, I've gone the bell curve on this. I've gone through the like hyper resistant. We don't need more desktop clients to just accepting that's the way it is for a PC gamer. But now I'm just like, where does it end? Like Civ has its own launcher now. So anyway, so I did finally get into Jedi Fallen Order. Playing it on PC, the game looks, for a game that is now 3 years old, looks absolutely amazing on PC. I can't. Like it's simply visually stunning. Of course, the thing that made me hesitant and hold back from playing this game was because I had played Jedi Outcast 2, or however that progression goes, and then Jedi Academy, and I was just like, after playing Jedi Academy, I was like, I can't see myself playing another game that really surmounts that pinnacle of the Jedi experience. Given that, from a mechanic standpoint, Fallen Order looks incredibly similar to Jedi Academy. But it's good. I've only played like the first 45 minutes to an hour. So I played like the introductory missions. It is very, I don't want to say that it's easy, but in the way that a lot of third person action adventure games can kind of get in their own way in terms of hitting sequences where you were just clumsily fumbling about, and it loses that cinematic movie kind of experience. There's a lot of elements of speed and flow in those introductory missions, but they have made the mechanics such that you don't get yourself into kind of that Mirror's Edge bathtub, or kind of that Shadow of War in Batman kind of bathtub where everything looks super cool and cinematic until you flub something up and miss a parry or something, and then you just look like a bumbling idiot. And you just kind of lose all of that magic that goes along with feeling like you're watching a movie. So they did a really good job with that. The lightsaber mechanics seem to be really solid and good, and I know that the game goes on to get deeper and better from there. I guess it's about a 25-hour experience. Like I said, I just got into it, so I won't go too deep into it because there's lots more to talk about from there. But I like what I've seen so far. Tao, anything new in No Man's Sky?
No, I jumped back into it just because I followed them on Twitter. I follow the studio and Sean Murray on Twitter, and they had tweeted out that they were doing, and this is something I'd never seen before. They're partnered with some Switch players where if you watch their stream for like however many along, and like there's like different the kind of levels that you unlock stuff within the game, which I thought was kind of cool. So I just kind of had it in the background while I was at work here at home. It was playing and I was just collecting stuff. So I jumped back in there, uh one, not just to collect the stuff, but to actually play the game because it had been a while, and they had just released the Expedition I don't know, I guess DLC or update, I should say, which I didn't get a chance to play yet because it's more of a multiplayer thing. But I just wanted to jump back in just to see, how it was again, and how the just regular updates that they've done throughout the year, especially on the Xbox Series X. How it looked and everything. And it's still it looks really good on the Xbox Series X. I can't talk about how good this looks and how much better it looks. Just even from the Xbox One X, it just looks gorgeous. So yeah, I've just been kind of going through and doing a little bit of the I was doing a little bit of my quests, kind of. Well, I shouldn't say the main quests, but just kind of the side quests. Because I kind of finished main story-ish quests where you kind of reach the Galactic Center and you can warp to another galaxy. But I didn't. I chose just to stay where I was for now. I can go back and do that later if I need to, or if I want to, I should say, not if I need to. So I'm just kind of doing kind of side quests here and there, and just exploring some of the other quests that they have now, like the freighters and the derelict freighters and stuff like that. So I'm just having a lot of fun as usual in No Man's Sky. Highly recommend.
Very cool. The only other thing that I'll mention before we go into the wrap up for tonight is I also started playing NBA 2K21, and the only reason I mentioned it is to tie back into the earlier story on Pacer, a game that I probably would have bought otherwise. At this, now that we're in the spring, it's discounted a little off from its fall debut price, but held back because in the Xbox reviews you see a ton of people talking about all of the errors and game-breaking bugs that they're hitting in the XS version. And so, in the vein of that question that I asked of, hey, are rental services and subscription services now a good way to protect yourself from buying a game when developers aren't really finishing the mission? I'm choosing to play, sink a ton of some time into this game on Game Pass before I even consider purchasing it. Simply
Is Game Pass, is it the
NBA the 2K21,
or is it the series version?
The 2K21 on Game Pass is the Xbox One version, and so yes, there's still a risk because all the comments that I see seem to be against the XS version. So I don't know how much of a delta there would be there. There shouldn't theoretically be.
No, they're totally different versions. I mean, the engine's different. The gameplay mechanics feel.
Oh, really? So it's not just a graphical upgrade.
Not just a graphical upgrade,
okay.
Because the Damian Lillard one came out 2 months before the Zion Williams one.
Okay.
So it was out early. It is different, but it's also more. The story mode in the series version is more fully fledged. At some point, maybe I've been playing it as well, so this is where I have thoughts and awareness of.
So you've been playing the XS version or the One version?
The One version, the one on Game Pass, right?
Okay.
Because I saved and waited for a big sale or Game Pass.
Gotcha.
So.
Well, we will have much to talk about in a couple of weeks, my friend. So on to next Picks Place. So E3 returns as an all-digital event. Will this year bring the excitement of E3s of yore or be likened to one of the more deadpan digital directs that we've seen each of the major manufacturers and many of the publishers become guilty of in the world of the virtual? It's a toss-up. But to keep things positive, let's think back on those E3s of days gone by and visit a title that either brought us excitement in its E3 reveal or coverage. It could be that game itself or something related to it. The game you played instead of it, a sequel in the franchise, another game from the same developer, anything related, anything that draws your mind back to that E3 and the buzz you experienced from it. Now, of course, what we choose for our assignments at this point, it's well open to change, but just as a preliminary selection, I intend to continue my gameplay in Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, because one of the most exciting moments in E3 for me in recent years was, I think this was 2018, when they pan to, in an otherwise kind of lackluster EA Play presentation. They did go to Vince Zampella out in the crowd, this being before Apex Legends came out, actually. And so we really hadn't heard a lot from Respawn since Titanfall 2. But they panned to him out in the crowd, and Andrea Renee went down and sat next to him in kind of a very informal setting. And that's where we got the first, it was entirely verbal, but reveal that Respawn was working on this specific Star Wars game and titled it in that reveal, and gave us a release time frame, at least. DBQ, what are you planning on playing?
I'm going to revisit my excitement from E3 2015 and the PlayStation 4 announcements there. So whether it is Horizon Zero Dawn, and this was kind of my personal tipping point for PlayStation 4, right? We get No Man's Sky, we get Ratchet and Clank, Horizon Zero Dawn, we get Dreams first announced. So a number of we get Final Fantasy 7. This is the Shenmue 3 Final Fantasy 7 piece. So lots of things, but I'm going to pick and choose from that list there.
Tao, speaking of Vince Zampella, you are going to be playing?
I will be playing Titanfall 2, most likely. I was going to go for Titanfall, but I don't know, since that's just a multiplayer game. I don't know what the community is like right now, so I'll probably try to jump into that, and if it's like pretty dead, I'll just go into Titanfall 2. Excuse me.
And Swish, you are channeling this news track about E3, but also an even more recent news track about what Kojima is up to. And so, what are you going to be playing?
Yeah, I'm gonna also reach back to E3 2018 and look at Death Stranding. And if you recall, that was when Sony had like those big four titles to kind of close out their generation. And I'm kind of like, as Agaskles pointed out, the resident Kojima nut. So that excited me at the time. And another one of those tentpole titles, Ghost of Tsushima, has really eaten up all my PlayStation time. So I really want to get back to Death Stranding.
No, I'm glad you referenced that, because I was going to say, I remember that E3, and I remember what title you were actually really the most excited about, but you've finished that one already, so.
Yes.
Leaving Death Stranding. Very good, sir. Next week is a deep dive episode with all four of us back for another week. Swiss will be driving as host next week as we navigate the gaming news and trends of the past 2 weeks. Gentlemen, anything else that we need to add for tonight? All right, then. Well, thanks everyone who happened to join in on the live stream. We appreciate you. For those of you out there watching the archive version of this video on the E2KG Network podcasting channel on YouTube, we appreciate you as well. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Stay safe out there. Play the games that you love and come here to talk about, I guess, the games that you love, too. Until next time, good night, good luck, and good gaming. That's going to do it for us. We're out of here.